Hey everybody, Big D here, and we're back with our modern day zombie apocalypse type build. Last time we built our modern church, little chapel, nice looking building. This time we're going to be building a creepy looking abandoned apartment building. Now, the stuff I taught you with that church and the stuff I'm going to teach you with building this apartment building are going to make it so you don't have to buy those expensive MDF kits. No specialized tools, saws, files, all that junk. You're going to need a knife, you're going to need some foam board, and you're going to need some paint and some glue. Simple stuff, easy to build, lightweight and sturdy. So, let's hit the table. Alright crafters, hey, we're back. And we are doing our apartment building build. So we're going to start off with our plans here. We're starting off with the front and the back that are going to be 7 inches wide. And we're going to have our two sides that are going to be 6 inches wide. And they're both going to be 8.5 inches tall. So you're going to start off by getting your plans put together. This is the way I do it. If you want to just cut freehand, but I do this. So you're going to make 2 of these identical to each other, except for the back, you're not going to put these 3 windows on the back of the building. So we're only going to do all windows on the front and the door on the front, and the 3 windows here will not be on the back of the building. You'll understand why when we get to building the back. And then we're going to do the 2 sides, and there's a window in the front of the building and the back of the building on both sides. So nothing in the middle, but just front and back windows. And we're going to build 2 of these.
So you'll see I've got some strips marked here. We're going to have popsicle sticks used to decorate the building a bit. But you're going to need some foam board for the top and the bottom. We're adding depth. So 3/4 of an inch wide strips, we need 8 of them because they're going to wrap all the way around the building. Have them a little bit longer than the length of the building. You'll see when we get to that point of the build.
This is where we're going to start. So we're going to get these put together. 7 inches wide, 8 inches tall. Each of the windows are 3/4 of an inch and an inch tall, except for these central windows, which are 1 inch square. Alright, so let's put this together, get some foam, cut it out, or pin it up, and we'll come back.
Okay, so I've talked about my pinning process before, but I just wanted to show it the process from beginning to end. I'll take the board and I'll put my template down. I pin one side down, the corners, pull it tight. If there's a larger central structure or whatnot, like the door here, I'll pin that down. I pull the paper tight, I pin the other 2 corners, and then I just start at one end of the template and start working my way up and across, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It means everything lays flat and everything lays evenly. You'll notice that some of these don't go exactly in the corners that I've drawn. That's because what I've drawn in there are just an idea of what I'm working with. I use the graph paper corners to make sure everything is nice and even and perfectly measured and perfectly shaped. So then when it's all in place, everything looks like it would normally. Now, after I've got them all in place, what I'll do is I'll tap the whole thing down to make sure the pins are nicely marked in, and then I gently pull them all back out. So, just like that. It takes about 10 minutes. Now, one of the other ways I use the pins is that after I've actually pinned up the project, this is how I make sure my edges are square and straight. I'll put the pins back in the corners, put a couple more pins along my metal ruler, and then I score the board, pull the pins, run the razor through again, and now I've got a perfectly straight, perfectly square cut. Works every time. And it's what I've been doing since I started working with foam board like this. It makes my life easier, lets me measure once, and lets me do things a lot quicker. So go ahead, try it, see if it works for you. All right, so using the pin method, I'm basically playing connect the dots. Using a metal straight edge and my X-Acto, I'm just connecting the dots, using that to get a perfectly straight ring, pop out the window. Same thing with the door. I'm going to do this method for all of them and do this for the entire piece.
All right, crafters, so we've got our stuff cut out for the two sides and the back, and we've got our 3/4 inch strips for the bottom and the top of the building. We're going to take the 3/4 inch strips and we're going to set them aside, and we're going to assemble our building. Now, as people who have watched the channel before know, I'm a big fan of using stick pins and leaving them in as an additional point of support. So that's exactly what we're going to do. You're going to do pins at each of the midpoints on the front and back of the building. So you're going to have one here, here. These are going to end up being covered by the craft stick facade or the 3/4 inch foam facade that we're going to put as decoration in the middle levels. So we're just going to put them in, and then we're going to use Eileen's tacky glue, good old PVA glue. Not hot glue on this, mainly because we're not under any type of speed need here, and I prefer the firmness of tacky glue. Have these so they.
So basically, I'm running a bead down the line, and I'm lining up the piece of foam, putting it on the pins that I've slightly pushed through, and then pushing the whole thing together and lining it up, making the building.
And look at that building, it just comes together beautifully. We're going to do the same to the back side, and then we're going to let it dry, and we'll come back. Okay, so we used our tacky glue, and we put our 3/4 inch there, all the way around. See a little bit of gap here, so we're going to have a little gap up top, so I have a seat to put the lip in, but here it's right against the bottom here. So now we're going to take these regular craft sticks, and the way we prep them, trim off the ends so they're square, and then just clean them up so nice and even, and then we're just going to hot glue them into place.
So we're just taking these sticks that we've hot glued in place, we squared them off, we sand them a little bit so they're not so rough, and they're just going to form a cladding to add some depth to the building. 3 rows in between each of the sets of windows going all the way down. They just want to have a little bit of lip on them so that they overlap and they'll know where the floors are.
Okay, so now the strings off, but we now got our strips all the way around. See, it looks good. All right, now we're telling you to keep the stuff you kept clipped off, and here's why. We're going to cut them into 3/4 inch pieces. 3/4 inch. Why? Because they're going to fit as windowsills.
So we're going to glue these 3/4 inch pieces of craft stick in each of the regular windows and 1 inch ones in the big windows and go all the way around the building with them.
Okay, so we now have the building done with all the windowsills done, all the cladding's done, and now this is ready for the final pieces of insulation. We're going to cut a piece of cereal box to fit inside of here and glue it in place down. And then we're going to take some pieces of cereal box and we're going to cut them to fit behind and cover behind the whole thing before we prime it. I'm making this apartment building to look like it's abandoned, which is why I'm going to put the backing here. But you can do the windows however you want. The build I'm going to do is going to make this look like the windows are boarded up and like everything's locked up and boarded up and the building's been abandoned. So we're going to have like a security door and these are going to be boarded all the way up. So we're going to come back to that. So for right now, we're just going to take some cardstock, glue it to the back of each of the 4 walls to cover up the windows and the door. I'm going to cut a piece of cardstock or cereal box to fit here. And then we're going to prime the whole thing, give it a good black bomb. So when we come back, we're going to have a black building to work with. And then we're going to start painting.
All right, so we have our black bombed apartment building, cardstock backed off on each of the windows and on the roof. So now we've got this monolithic structure. We got to add depth. The problem is concrete isn't just gray. We want to add some depth, but we've got to do it through illusions. We're going to take some brown, we're going to take a dark chocolate brown, and we're just going to kind of spread it unevenly, but in layers all around the building, so that when we put the layer of gray down on top of it, it kind of mutes the tone and changes the tone of the gray so that we add this illusion of multiple layers without having to do 10, 12 coats of paint. So we just do a heavy coat of this chocolate brown. It doesn't have to be even, it doesn't have to cover everything. We're just using this to add some depth to the overall piece so that then the dark gray and the medium gray and the light gray all are toned so they look more like a real concrete.
All right, we got our dirty brown, we gotta let that dry.
So the next step is we're gonna make a roof. We wanna make this look like a black tar roof. So we take a little bit of our black paint and Mod Podge mix. Thank you, Black Magic Craft. I take a foam brush and we just put a coat of it over the paint we've already done. Light coat, just enough to make a nice, even looking coat. Now we're going to take my favorite fine grit, cornmeal, and we're going to sprinkle a little bit of it into the glue. The glue will soak into the cornmeal, it'll become one with the piece. It'll soak up real hard, and it'll make a nice tar roof for us to work with. A little bit, you just tap it when you're done. The stuff you don't need will brush right off when you're all through, and then it'll take paint when you're ready to go. So after the Mod Podge dried, we put another coat of black, and so now the black and the brown have dried. Now we're going to take a dark gray, and we're just going to give the building a semi-even coat. We don't want to go so thick and full that we completely wipe out the brown. Again, we want the brown to tone the gray and add some unevenness so that we get that concrete illusion. So I started off using a foam brush and getting tore up by those windowsills. So I had to switch to a wide, flat bristle brush. And again, we're just kind of hitting all the surfaces so that everything has that gray. It's more even than the brown, but it's still relatively uneven. We want tone to come through. We want color to come through. We want to build that illusion, that depth of illusion, that we have a concrete building without it just being this monolithic, I'm a big gray block. So don't worry about making this perfect with stippling that's going to get everything covered. That's the next step. So here we're just getting everything gray. We're taking a little bit of gray and we're just kind of dry brushing the top too, just to kind of touch up to give some weathering point. We also want to make sure we hit all the edges with the dark gray so that when we stipple, we get depth on the edges, and we'll get there with the medium gray and the light gray as well. But it's a process. So go step by step, get everything mostly gray, hit all the edges, a little bit on the roof to just add some depth and color up there, the illusion of light, and we're good to go.
There we go. The undercoat of gray. Looks ugly, but trust me, when you're done, it will all come together beautifully. Okay, so this is dried. We've now got our gray, dirty building. Now we're going to add some of the medium gray texture. So I get a brush. It's a beat up, bigger brush, because we want bristles that we don't mind roughing up. And what we're going to do is we're going to stipple. So you load up the brush, let some of it go.
All right, so this up and down, up and down, up and down goes all over the place. Don't go too heavy in any area like I do in front of this window here. We'll have to go back and stipple it with the darker color that you have underneath it. This is a beautiful process because once it's dry, it adds a lot of an illusion of depth, and it looks like stone. It looks like concrete. And yet all it is just you going up and down and not hitting everything, but just getting the tips of the brush all over the place and making these pock marks and these little divots of color all over the place. With the brown underneath and the semi-painted on gray and the multiple layers, this creates an incredible illusion, beautiful depth, so that when you get to the next step of dry brushing, this thing is going to be gorgeous.
Okay, so we got our two shades of gray and a brown. It's all dry. And now we're going to do the white highlighting.
We're actually going to just speed through this edging or highlighting process because it's actually quite simple. You just take a tiny, tiny amount of white paint, almost none on the brush, and you're just hitting all the edges of the windowsills, all the corners, all the edges of everything, and this is going to add that last bit of highlighting. Now you might tap it here or there. It's, again, we've got the stippling effect, so a couple stipples tapping here or there in some of the areas that are brighter will just add a little bit more of that concrete depth. The big thing is you want to hit all the edges and make this building really brighten up. The dark gray, the brown, the medium gray, this white will really brighten the whole project up and really make it beautiful.
All right, so while we're waiting for stuff to dry, you're going to get yourself some of this. It's chicken wire or garden wire or small animal wire, but it's the 1/2 inch. So a 1/2 inch grid. And you're going to cut some pieces from this. So it's pretty cheap. You can get it at garden stores, big box, hardware stores, that type of thing. It's pretty cheap. Just get a small roll. I got some extra. And you're going to cut some pieces. You're going to cut 3 of them that are going to be 14 squares by 4 squares. But we're going to trim it clean on these 3 sides, and you're going to actually take off piece that's there. So you're going to actually have 3 squares and then these points sticking out. Then, using your wire cutters, you're going to take out these 2 corners, like so, and so. So you got this shape. And then you're going to take a pair of 2 pairs of pliers, you're going to bend it. And when you bend it, you're going to bend up a row and bend those last 2 rows up here. So you're going to make your fire escape. And then you're going to cut out this thing here. So you've got 5 squares to either side, and then the 1 square around, And one thing's going to happen. So you're going to make 3 of these, just like this. So you cut this, take out these corners, and make this. So you got 3 of those. Then you're going to get another one. And you're going to cut this one longer. So it's 17 long. 17 long.
It'll be 4 wide. You're going to cut off the last side edge so it's open pins, and you're going to bend over 2 and then bend over 1, making a J shape. Now taking your wire cutters, you're going to cut off the pins that stick out on the side to all the squares that are on the J shape. So it's just going to be an open rail that goes over the top.
So this loop is all clean and smooth. And then these you're going to bend in. So they're like that. Okay, and you're going to do that to all of these. And then you're going to cut out
all the middle uprights, thus making this look like a ladder or a staircase, like for a fire escape. So now in the J section, you're just cutting out all the middle pieces.
So you now see what you're building is a roof ladder. So you're going to bend these all the way this way and then all these this way. And then after they're all done, show you how to install.
So actually, I had to make a few small changes. So we've taken off some of the pins. We've left the ones at the top and the bottom and one in the middle there. And on these, we've had to take an extra corner out of the middle section. So it's actually first 2 and then 4. And we're leaving most of the bottom pins because these are the only things holding them in. So I'm going to show you how we're going to take a pin and we're going to stick them into the building with a pin and then use that to line up to put these in. So we'll be right back with that and show how we install these into the building.
Okay. Alright, so we're going to get some of the coffee stirrers, the standard bamboo coffee stirrers. These are great. Get them from any coffee shop or you can buy them, but they're basically 4 of them cut 3/4 of an inch wide will make a window. So I'm going to board up our windows just like that. So what we need to do is we can either paint them ahead of time, which will make things easier, and then just cut them in place, or we're going to stain them. So you want to paint them, your own way of painting them, that's great. I'm just going to stain mine. So I just use regular good old wood stain, or sometimes I'll use just brown shoe polish, which works wonders. So you're going to need 4 for each of the windows. You've got 4 per floor on the front and on the back, and then 4, so you got 12 windows. Plus you've got the 1 inch wide ones that you got the 3 on the 3 upper floors. So you'll need to make 4 of these 1 inch wide for that floor. So get your sticks, dye them first, then cut them, and we'll put them in place. And as you can see by the way the staining works, I mean, these will dry, but it does work for you. It brings out the natural grain, it makes them look great, it makes them look aged. So we've already got our work done for us. So we just need to let these dry, and then we're going to cut them up and we're going to glue them into the windows. We're going to come back, we're going to put these in the windows, and we're going to do our granite grates. Okay, so while we're waiting, we're going to get some of this ultra stiff plastic canvas. It's also known as granny grating. We're going to get a piece of this, and we're going to cut some squares, size of the windows for the first floor, so that we can build security covers for the first floor, and a door for the front door. which will be security doored. So we get that, cut these out. You need 10 of these, this size, and 1 of these. And then you're going to spray paint them black. So they're primed. And then if they're primed, we're going to paint them. Wish I had to do that. It's going to be easy. We're going to make them look kind of rusted and old. We've blacked out the windows in our building, retouched up in the black to make them look nice and dark. And now we're going to paint up the granny grating. We've already primed them black, and we've got a dark gray. We don't want too much on the brush, so our palette, we're just using a dark gray, and we're giving them a nice coat. Now this isn't just a regular black dark gray. I took dark gray from Craftsmart, and I just mixed in, basically I touched my brush into the black paint and then mixed it in. So don't want to oversaturate because we still want some black there, because if you've ever seen these security things, they're mainly black, but what we're going to do is we're going to darken them up with some gray so that we can see contrast. And then afterwards we're going to give them a highlight in a rust red to make them look like they're rusting, obviously. So we're just going to quick paint these up. And let them dry. While they are drying, since we're going to have the time and the rest of the building is done, alright, so they're not quite black, but they're dark gray. Alright, so we can take these, we're going to set them aside. So you can see here, we've re-blacked out our windows just to make the building look darker, and we've started fitting in the cut pieces in the windows. This is really simple. All we're going to do is take a little bit of just plain old simple school glue PVA and just put a little bit in there. Don't need a lot. And then we're going to take 1, 2, 3, and 4. And see how they fit in there? So we're just going to go from window to window.
Each window is the same, just a little tiny bit of glue in your finger, spread it around and put 4 slots in. And you can use a tool or a pin or something to push them together. They don't have to be perfect. They can be a little jagged, a little edged. These are just hastily boarded up windows, so just go through.
Alright, and so we're going to do all the windows inside, let it dry, and then turn and do the other windows. We'll be back. So the dark gray on the granny grates has dried, and so now we're just going to put a little bit of a rust effect on them. So we're just taking our brick red, not putting it on too heavily.
Nothing too heavy, just a little here and there, just to give the hint of the rust and decay going on these window grates.
So got a little bit of rust. We're going to let this dry.
And now we're going in a tiny brush and some silver paint, and we're just going to highlight the silver just to contrast the rust, the gray, the black, make it all pop and really highlight
we're
the
just
whole
going to take them,
metal piece
I'm going
that
to
is
glue them
these
into place
plates.
all on the first floor. So we'll come back, and when we come back, we're going to do our fire escape, and then we're going to be done. So fire escape next. All right, so we've got our granny grate in place. We've got all our windows in place, all the painting's done. We even took some foam, slid off the back so that it would fit in the spot, put down a little bit, painted it with that rust red, and then just did some gray stippling on top to make it look like a fire door for the back. So last thing we have to do is put on our fire escape. So to get these on, we're going to need some super glue, and we're going to need a pin. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to fit the fire escape in place. So this is the down fire escape. So we see where our pins are going to go. So we take a pin and we have it right where we want it. And I'm going to take pins and then we're going to lift this back out of place and take the pin and push them all the way through. All the way through. Okay, so now the holes are. So we're going to put pins back in, and we just want to widen these up a little bit. So 2 pins in. There we go. First pin in, second pin in. All right, then all the way in. The back piece on. Now we're going to do the same thing with each of our pieces here. And now we're going to do this with each of our pieces here. So we're going to line them up. And then we go through the same process. Just gonna take our thing. Push them all the way through. And now we have fire escape. You gotta do it for those 3 floors, and then we'll be done. So here we are with our finished abandoned apartment building. We've got a really great base build here. You could dress this up even further if you wanted. You could take a paint pen and draw up some vandalism, tag the building. Railroad modeling actually has a lot of like tags that you see like on train cars, and they've got them in decal form. You could stick them there too. If you have skill with an airbrush, you could do it. So this is a great building, and the thing is, we covered all the basic templates of what you need to do to build these sorts of buildings. We're going to take it over a table, and I'm going to show you it on my main street with a few of the other buildings that I do of this sort. Alright, so as you can see here, we've got our intrepid heroes fighting back to back as the zombies make their way down the main street of our town. We've got one of their people up on the roof taking some shots down at the zombie horde that seems to be wandering through the middle of the street. And as you can see, building we made, although is a little bit fancier, a little bit bigger than a lot of the other buildings, it's a basic template with all the different skills you need to make buildings of just about any type. We've got a storefront with an apartment building second floor that I've made. I've got a garage. It's actually built to size for some cars I found that fit the scale. I got a corner pub also with a upstairs apartment building. A burned out store with the security windows and the grating up top. And our first attempt at doing a boarded up building. So as you can see, the basic skills define this village. Now we're going to do a couple more buildings for my own build, but I want you to use your imagination. With the stuff I've shown you, you can do just about anything. So the next video I'm actually going to do is the one thing you don't see here, an actual street. We're going to make some squares that come together that build you an actual city street. It'll have streets, it'll have sidewalks, it'll have places to put the buildings, so it all fits together and makes a nice, cohesive looking tabletop. Again, it's all about epicing your game, epicing your board, and getting the wow back into your game. I want to thank you all for being here with me. And if you like this video, you found it useful, please like, subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you next time. I'm Big D. Game on.